Alright folks, our beetroots are starting to head off the seeds, so it's time to show how to turn this into this. Alright, so we're going to go through and harvest the beetroots, and today we're doing a recipe for the golden beets. There is our little haul of golden beetroot. How we prepare them for the boiling. So what we're doing is we're pulling off the fine hair-like roots, and we're chopping the root off where it turns into, starts forking out. We're going to cut it there or leave about 1 inch on it. Same on the tops, we're going to leave about 1 inch on the top. Now beetroot does bleed, so that's why you want to leave a bit of length on each end, because otherwise when you boil it you're going to bleed some of the colour out of it, which is not what you want to do. Any of the old dead leaves at the top, just pull all that off. Put them in a pot with some water. Now for small beets like this one, you probably want about 20-25 minutes of cooking time. You just want to get them so that they're tender. And then we will deal with them after that. For this recipe, I'm going to do a cold pack. I've got another bunch of red beetroot that I've got to do, so I'm going to do a hot pack on those ones and I'll do a cold pack on these golden ones. Alright, so I'm going to take these off the boil and we'll come back once they have. Cooking time is all done and they are nice and tender. You don't want them mushy tender, but you do want them tender. We're just going to go into some nice cold water to stop the cook. You can see the colour of the water that they've boiled in. What I mean about the bleed out, they do lose some of the colour. Most of that has come from those stalks and roots. If we had to cut it off, cut the top off it, then it would have been coming out of the beet itself, which would have been no good. They've cooled off a fair bit. They're not completely cool, but they're cool enough to work with. All right, so I'm just going to top and tail them now, and they should easily peel. Just by rubbing your fingers across them. Scraps go into our scrap bowl. Okay, if these were bigger, I'd do a slice on them. They're not big enough, so I'm just going to cube them up. Again, top and tail. And as I say, just rub them with your fingers, the skin will come off. There we go. All right, I'll go through and process this lot. So nice clean sterilised jars. I've got two half pint jars here. I'd rather split the harvest into 2 half pints than make one large full pint. That way I can pull it out on a couple of occasions. Pack it down. We want to end up with about 1/2 inch of headspace. And of course, if a piece falls, you get to taste the joy of freshly cooked beets. So there's our jars packed, and now we'll make up the brine for them. Now I've done some digging on brines, and this is about the simplest one I can find. It's a nice, very simple brining recipe. So, I'm going to have 2 parts in this case, because I've only got a small amount. That's 1/2 cup of apple cider vinegar. Now that can be any vinegar that takes your fancy, whether it's red wine vinegar, malt vinegar, white vinegar, doesn't matter. Next up is 1 part of sugar, because I used a 1/2 cup. 1 part of sugar is 1/4 cup. Now, of course, you can use a white sugar, you can use a raw sugar like me. Ideally, don't use a brown sugar because it has molasses added into it. All right, next up, we're going to add 1 part of water, and I'm substituting apple juice for water in this one. So it's a preservative-free apple juice. And what I'm doing there is reinforcing the apple cider vinegar, also adding a little bit of that apple sweetness, which goes well with the beetroot. Next, we want to add our flavorings. So a non-iodized salt, either a kosher, a cooking salt, you know, something in that vein. We want to add 1/4 teaspoon for this amount. If you're doing full cups as your parts, then it's 1 teaspoon. Next up, we're going to add some celery seeds, and I'm going to use about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Now the flavoring section's all to your taste, and we're going to add some turmeric. Good flavor. It's going to go with the earthiness of the beets, and it's also going to help with our golden color. So we're going to again go with 1/8 of a teaspoon there. And we want to take this over. We're going to put it on the stove. We're going to bring it up to the boil. Once it's boiling, we're going to let it boil for 5 minutes, and that will mean that the sugar incorporates into the liquids. Here we have our brine, which is boiled for 5 minutes. So we'll just pour that in there. Debubble it as per normal. I'll just use my handy dandy chopstick. Now I'm going to go with our lids. Just like the jar, the lids have been sanitized. We just want to go finger tight and back off a touch. Finger tight, back off a touch. All right, now from here, these are going to go into a water bath. I'm working on the red ones at the same time. So these ones, I'm going to let them cool, and they'll go into the cold water bath. And the red ones I'm going to hot pack, so they're going to go into the water bath once it's heated up. All right, next step is water bathing. "30 minutes of processing, 15 minutes of cooling." There we are, and we'll have a look at it again tomorrow. Here we are the next day, as you can see, all labelled up. Sealed nicely, and an absolutely beautiful golden pickled beetroot. All right, thank you very much everyone for watching, and bye for now.